All right, guys. So welcome back to another special segment of the Bet the Casual. We are going to break down how to bet in the UFC today, something that is relatively new for me as well. So kick it off, Suraj.
Yeah, so first things first, guys. If you like what we've done in 2020 so far, with everything that's happening, Kaizaan living in Calgary, me out here in the outskirts of Toronto, also known as Guelph, if you know where that is, we tried to do everything we could. We did not miss a card since we started. We started to get some fighter interviews. If you haven't checked out our interview with Justin James, please go check that out now. It's up on YouTube. The full 30 minutes is there. We've got a few more lined up, and right now we're about to hit, nail on the head with the bet and the casual here. Ironically, still known as a casual, but we'll see where that lands in the next couple of years. But, kick it off, man. I'm really excited to see what you got in store for everybody.
Perfect. So the one kind of main thing I want to touch on, quick tip before you jump into this realm, is bankroll, okay? Money management, got to be smart with it. Whatever your bankroll is, it can be $100, it can be $25, it can be $500. Whatever it is, your bets should not exceed 1 unit, and your bankroll should be at least 50 units. So if you have a $500 bank unit, should not be tossing $100 on a fight. Your bet sizes should be $10. I got 50 of them minimum in my bankroll.
Question, Pies. What would you say is the biggest mistake that people make? Because you and I both know there's the degenerate side of gambling where you and I are probably hitting some 10-team parlays once in a blue moon and maybe going off the cuff a little bit here or there, live and all that with every sport on the planet. So what are some things that people do need to keep an eye out for?
To be honest, I think the biggest mistake people make, especially in UFC betting, is chasing, right? So you have 1 unit laid on 10 different fights. Your card is set up, but your first 3 lose. Instinctively, you're like, let me bump up the juice on the remaining 7 and try and catch it back. Do not ever do that. Got to be smart with that money. Stick to your methods, stick to your unit bankrolls, and that's the way that long-term you will be successful.
That makes a lot of sense to me because when you think about other sports, right? So let's take a basketball schedule, for example. If you start betting on maybe the 7 o'clock games, you actually have to look into a new event or a new schedule altogether, say for the next game, or if you want to start laying on 10 o'clock games, things like that. In MMA or in the UFC, it's so easy because the events are just back to back.
And you've already decided who I'm taking on the next fight. So it's so easy to be like, fuck, I lost the first one. Let me double down on the second one. I already know who I like.
Exactly.
That is the worst mistake anybody can make.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. And the next other kind of tip I would have for you guys, and it's more of a betting aspect, is pay attention to where the money is and what the line movement is happening. If, for example, Conor McGregor is fighting Dustin Poirier, everybody is taking Conor McGregor. So you can go look online and see 80% of the money is on Conor McGregor. If the line is dropping, it's opened at minus 250, and now it's minus 225, minus 200. That to me is a big indicator to stay away from Conor McGregor. Vegas is basically telling you, we don't give a shit how much money comes in on Conor. We're okay taking the other side.
And that's
so
where,
those are kind of be my...
Sorry, I was just going to say, even looking into the next few things that Pies is going to touch on here, he will be using the McGregor-Poirier event as the example because you can basically bet every outcome you want already. So just as like a little bit of a, so just as a touch point there. So everything that Pies refers to now as lines are actually live lines.
Perfect. And you said it best. This is the perfect example to show you guys exactly what you can bet on, how to bet it. And this is a fight coming up, so it's a perfect example. So let's dive right into that with the 2-win fight bet. So that's standard on any cards. It's literally just saying who is going to win the fight. And so you'll see it right at the top there. Right now, Conor McGregor's minus 275 to win the fight. Dustin Poirier is plus 225 to win the fight. So basically, you have to risk $275 on Conor to win 100. Or if you risk 100 on Poirier, you return $225.
And trust me, we all know a bunch of people here that might want to change these lines to non-American odds. So if you're the kind of person that just isn't so UCs and might want to just see, hey, if I put $20 on this guy, like Pi said, if that's your unit size and you just want to see what the outcome is without having to do all that mental math, a lot of people use the decimals. Pies and I, not so much, but just so you know,
man.
Just so you know, you want to be able to just see a multiplier and see how much money you get for every bet. There's definitely a way to change that.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. And in any book, you can change it to American odds versus decimal odds. The one thing to consider when taking these bets straight up is that in the event of a draw, if you have just taken to win fight, it is a push. It is not
Charles Jourdain!
even thing, right? Figueiredo ended up being a draw.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Figueiredo Moreno, same thing. That ends up being a no bet. Your bet is canceled. You returned your initial investment.
Precisely.
Anything else that you think we should touch on in terms of to win the fight?
Well, you just want to also keep in mind the whole idea of, I think Pies mentioned opening lines and the idea of just seeing where the public money's going, right? Those are the most important things about keeping your wits about you when you're in this realm of gambling, because your money's not going to change. You're going to have the amount that you're willing to spend, but you're going to watch all these lines changing with, you're hearing guys putting $1 million on a 1 point, let's use these decimal ones for the people, like the 1.15 lines. Well, that guy's got $1 million to spend on, winning 100 grand or whatever the case may be. That's okay. But that has to factor into maybe your lines when you're saying, well, you know what, if these are the types of, confidence levels that people are rolling with, I might have to recalculate where my investments go. So those are the things that Pies is referring to, dumb them down a little bit so you can always be aware of where that's happening, because no matter what you're betting on, whether it's MMA, NFL, NBA, those line movements are happening at all times. And given how popular an event like McGregor-Poirier is going to be, I can guarantee you that over the course of the next month, you're going to see absolutely crazy amounts of money dropped on this fight, and potentially some line movements as well.
A lot of different line movements. And yeah, you kind of brought it up perfectly. Really pay attention to that line movement as you're looking to, lay these bets. And as you do see people say, I'm going to lay $1 million on this. Let's be real here. Their bankroll is not 50 million. So they're already swaying away from the money management aspect of this.
Exactly.
Unless you're Floyd Mayweather, maybe your bankroll is 50 million then.
Yeah, well, your bankroll could be well over that. So, if chump change to you is that $1 million bet, then you know why he's betting that to win 100K.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got to pay his cat babysitter for the night, He's got to get that 100K ready to go.
Perfect. And so that'll take us right into fight outcome. So fight outcome is saying I specifically have a strong lean on how this fight is going to end, whether it's going to be by KO. I mean, if you can call it a disqualification, all the power to you, but that falls into the same line. Submission, that on most books will all fall into the same line. KO, TKO, disqualification, submission will all fall into the same.
Doctor stoppage. You can find
specific books.
Let's make sure we mention doctor stoppage as well. So if there's a bad cut, anything like that, that is actually a finish as well.
Oh, okay. There you go. Some great information right there. If it is a doctor stoppage, that does count as a KO, TKO, basically finishing the fight before going to decision.
As long as it's from a legal strike. So, for example, if you land a John Jones illegal elbow coming down from the top and you're lying there unconscious, well, you're not going to win that fight.
Are you sure? I think John Jones believes he won that fight.
Well, that's why he keeps saying he's undefeated.
So the nice thing about some of the smaller books, aside from Bet365, is that they can actually give you lines on specific, okay, just KO, remove the submission, or just submission, remove the KO, and really juice up those odds. So, Charles Oliveira, great example. That's a person who, if he is going to finish, will more than likely win by submission. You can even further juice up your odds by just taking the submission on some of these smaller books.
We personally sprinkled that exact same line on Jimmy Flick, who we're going to be chatting with shortly, maybe in the next week or so. But that's another guy who for a fact that if he's going to finish, which he does fairly often, it's going to be by submission.
By submission, exactly. And so the other thing to keep in mind when taking, the fight outcome is that you can then take it by decision. So basically the judge's scorecard. And finally, you can actually bet the draw on this three-way market. So when you're taking to win fight, the draw does not come into play. But if you're taking fight outcome and it goes to a draw, that is a specific separate line that you want to bet. And the odds are probably going to be astronomical.
And to use, Pies' example for this video here, we're looking at the draw right now between Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. It's a plus 8,000 line. So we know for a fact that if this for any reason goes that route, you're looking at plus 8,000.
You're making it rain. You're making it rain.
Oh, you're making it rain.
If you somehow have some indication on it being a draw, please let us know, man.
Yeah. But if you know any information, I'd rather be that guy than try to pay my cat nanny with $1 million bet to win 100K. I'd rather be that.
100%. Give me the plus 8,000. And, that shows how unlikely it really is. We just covered probably how many fights this year, Siraj?
I mean, we haven't stopped, right? So say average of 4 months, that's 4 fights, 20, at least 15 to 20 fights minimum we've covered.
20 cards, and within each card, there's at least 10 fights. So over 200 fights, and how many draws did we see? Two or three?
I want to say 2.
2. So that's a 1% clip. So really,
three. Sip. It was Smiling Sam
majority,
Alvey.
Right? Soup.
It was Smiling Sam Alvey. And
yeah, that's right.
That's where we hit the 11-team parlay for the Khabib card. That was the only fight. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen,
but that should give you a good gauge of how many truly hit. 3 out of 400 is what we just said. Like, come on, it's not even hitting at a percent. So really tread lightly if you are going to take the draw. Perfect, and that'll dive us right into round betting. So again, round betting, you really need to have some sort of strong hunch on what's going to happen here because the odds are astronomical. So if we're looking at Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, you're thinking there, this is a 5-round fight. I think McGregor is going to go to town in that 3rd round, and he is going to finish it right in that 3rd round. You look down there and you see round 3 plus 800. I'm going to take that. Conor McGregor finish in round 3 plus 800. So that's how the round betting kind of works.
And you can kind of see, right? It's also outcome based. So if you look at the way Conor McGregor has finished fights in the past, he's currently sitting at a minus 175 to finish this fight overall. And the fact of the matter is the best odds, I guess you could say the worst odds as a bettor would be the 1st round, right? So you see that sitting at plus 220 right now. And that really does come down to watching highlights like Jose Aldo's. You know how many times people are going to watch that clip over the next month till that fight happens? I can guarantee it will be in the millions. So little things like that, right? His ability to use his footwork and finish that 1st round plays heavily into things like the round betting. And Pies brought up something like the draw, right? Great use of lingo here. If anyone ever hears you use the word unit, whether it's an eighth, a quarter, a half, it doesn't matter. Do not be using the word unit and draw in the same sentence. The words you are looking for, my friend, is what, Pies?
Sprinkle, my man.
Sprinkle, my favorite kind of donut. I call it a sprinkle donut. It's called a vanilla dip, but we're going to call it the sprinkle today.
So he said it best, you're going to take some of these loose lines, sprinkle. Don't get crazy. Do not get crazy. And so the other thing you'll see also under round betting is points. And that's a term that is thrown out very commonly in the UFC. This fighter to win by points. What that essentially means is that fighter to win by decision. As you can see, specifically even in the Conor fight, the odds are the same. Whether you win by points or you win by decision, that's equivalently the same thing. And so the odds should be the exact same.
And so funny enough, we actually have the most wonderful example that Pies always dives to because I always show him the clip. And when Pies first started, that was one where in recordings, we had to bring it up. I'll never forget taking Maurice Green to win in the 3rd round against Gian Villante. Ladies and gentlemen, that was plus 1,600 live. I remember telling myself, he looked so good in the 1st round, and Villante could have won it if he wanted to. But if this goes to a 3rd round, and it goes to the ground, I can guarantee Maurice Green is going to find a way to win. And Pies, how did he do it?
On the back, man, on the back.
Finishing heavyweights from his back, baby. Submission win from the back. You'll never see anything like it, but there you go. Some wonderful little excitement.
A beautiful scenario he also brought up right there is that you can monitor these things as they're live on a lot of books as well, right? So, you're seeing somebody get real tired in the 1st round and has that potential to really get knocked out in the 2nd round at great value. You can take that live, right? And in this scenario, same thing. We're able to see, all right, he made it through the 1st round, blah, blah, blah. 3rd round is where the value is. It just made sense at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that takes us right into total rounds. And so that is essentially saying when you believe the fight will end. So if we're looking specifically at Conor here, the over on his fight total rounds for 1.5 rounds is minus 150. So that is essentially saying it is very favored that it'll at least go to 2.5 minutes of the 2nd round. Right? And as the time goes on, you see 2.5 gets into plus odds. 3.5, now this is great odds, plus 200. That means it's very, very likely that this is not going to go the distance. 4.5, even crazier. The one thing to also keep in mind, and I think we have a specific example for this one as well, is that each book is different. Do your research on what 1.5 means. We had, you want to touch on that fight for us?
Well, that's the thing. So we actually had, I personally have a few examples, and Pies and I jokingly had a lot of arguments about this because Pies is very much the line guy. Like he looked at it like, no, there's no way. And I was like, you know what? There'll be a point in time where I can just show him what kind of a headache it is to monitor which book does what. Because I can tell you right now, when we hit the Sasha Platnikov and the Kochi, the Kochi, the under there, the 2.5 under. Pies was actually at my house visiting, and funny enough, we're watching it. And I'm like, yo, Pies, like, it's clearly over the time, right? But he finished. And I'm like, watch, I'm pretty sure that we're going to get a payoff for this one. And surely enough, we did. And that was definitely over the time mark. We monitored that. Another one I can remember is there was an armbar by Demetrius Johnson quite some time ago for a title fight. And that was another one that definitely had that time frame kind of on the brink. So like Pies said, check with your book. Make sure you understand where that leniency lies, because if there's one thing we can tell you based on simple evidence and proof is that every single one does differ. And it's up to you to figure out which way you'd like to bet it. And I do think that it will fundamentally come down to if you're taking an under and over, because we seem to be doing very well with the overs when it comes to that little umbrella bracket. So we're going to roll.
But I think the general rule of thumb is just to accept, will it get, if it's over 1.5, will it get to over 2 minutes and 30 seconds of that second round? Mm-hmm. And so that dives us right into the final type of bet that you can take in UFC betting, and that is for the fight to go the distance. Not for any specific fighter, just the overall fight to go the distance. Will the judges be deciding who wins this fight? Now, this is normally found at the bottom of 365, and you can either say yes or no. I have a strong inclination somebody's going to get knocked out in this fight. It's not going to go the distance. You can take the no. You know, it's a couple of dudes who have really good cardio, who really, you know, end up going to the decision or the distance. You can take the yes there, and the odds will reflect that. Mm-hmm. This is available on any book. The one, you know, disclaimer we kind of want to give is that the example we've given here is through Bet365. This is kind of, you know, the easiest book to navigate and all that kind of stuff. But if you have any other questions for us, feel free to reach out. We're familiar with a lot of different books. This is just the example that we're using right now.
Yeah, and Pies pointed out a very good example. Like right now, you can obviously see that we don't have the options for just KO, just submission, things like that. But if you go into a book like, say, Betway, they do have those options. So, you know, he said it best. We do have experience with pretty much any possible event and outcome there is, at least in these sports, especially MMA. So, you know, any questions or any, you know, comments you guys have, feel free to drop them in the comments on Instagram, on YouTube. We're happy to reach out and touch point on those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, whether it's Unibet, you know, each region that you live in has specific restrictions on which books you can use, but we're kind of familiar with all of them. So feel free to reach out to us at any time if you have any sort of questions. DMs, comments, we'll take them any way you guys want to throw them out there. We're happy to help with all that. And I mean, you know, Pies basically broke down most of this card just looking at the Poirier-McGregor line, and he kind of said it best, you know, fight to go the distance. Make sure you're looking at the lines to reflect the value. You know, there's a reason why you're seeing this fight to go the distance at plus 275 for yes. Whereas, you know, if you had two flyweights who really just can eat a punch like crazy and are really good at scrambles, you know, good chance that that's going to go 5 rounds, kind of similar to your Figueiredos and your Marinos. Well, then, you know, fight to go the distance is probably not going to be sitting at plus 275. And another thing to always just keep in mind is if it's a main event, a championship fight, any of that stuff, it's going to be a 5-round fight. So that should factor in your decision-making for the fight to go to the distance. It's a lot easier to go the distance on a 3-round fight than it is a 5-round fight. And don't worry, books aren't going to try and trick you and only leave up 5 options there. So in case it's a 3-round fight, you know, they don't need to do that. They're winning enough money as it is. Very well said. So good luck to all you guys. Any questions, let us know. But let's get that paper. And like, subscribe, share. We'd appreciate all the support there is. You know, we appreciate the support there's been so far. Thank you, Justin James, again for hopping on our first little fighter sit-down segment. Looking forward to connect with a few other fighters down the line. So all these things are starting to really ramp up for us. And, you know, the next card's not till January 16th. So, you know what? Keep an eye out for us because we got some things brewing. My man.
Always a pleasure, my boy. Way to sell this MMA world to the betting fanatics of the sports universe. And you know what? Let's go get it.
My pleasure. Always
The
good
only
to
way
see
to
you.
beat Vegas is more heads than one. Peace.